so much for joining us for the 2023 Hawaii Counseling and Advising Convening. We would like to remind everyone that today's presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the event website. Please keep all cameras off and all microphones muted throughout the session if you would not like to be recorded. We would like to thank our live captioners who will be providing closed captioning for accessibility purposes. Since it is live, captions may not accurately reflect what is being said. Captions will be corrected for session recordings. Recordings and resources will be posted to the site between 3 to 4 weeks after today's presentations. If you have any questions for today's presenter, please add them to the chat box, and I, Katrina, will share your questions at the end of the session. So let's get started. I am so honored to announce and present to you Diane Yang, she, her. She is the career advisor at Chaminade University of Honolulu. She takes pride in coaching students toward their definition of success and thrives on creating experiences that foster students' career development. Diane possesses a background in career services, event planning, and hospitality management. She holds a BS in travel industry management from the University of Hawaii at Manoa and a MS in student affairs in higher education from Colorado State University. And fun fact, I was actually one of her advisors when she was a student at UH Manoa. So it's come full circle to see her present. So I present to you Diane Yang.
Hi, Kat. Thanks for the lovely introduction. I'm super excited to be here today and happy to talk about and share a little bit about what we're working on at Chaminade University to increase career readiness in our students. So today, the title of the presentation is Increasing Career Readiness and Expanding College Internship Opportunities for Historically Excluded Students. So as we think about increasing career readiness in our students, what is the most influential factor when employers consider new hires? And according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, it's having an internship with a particular organization or an internship experience within the same industry. And so if we think about this being the number one most influential factor, then how are we preparing our students to pursue internship opportunities to increase their employability? So let's look at some data. I love looking at data and incorporating it into my practice. So here's kind of what the national landscape looks like in terms of internships. So as you folks may already know, racial, gender, and first generation disproportionalities exist in unpaid internships. So white students make up about 74% of paid interns. Women account for 81% of unpaid internships, which is also apparent too when we think about wage gaps between different genders. And also first-gen students account for 25% of those who have either never interned and only 19% of paid interns. And so thinking about all of this data that I just shared, now we're looking at a smaller scope or size of data based around Chaminade University students. So here's some of our demographics in our student populations that we're supporting. So for undergraduate students for the 2022 to 2023 academic year at Chaminade, we consist of 74% students of color, 75% of students are women, 46% are first generation students, and 20% are Pell eligible. And that's kind of how we gauge students of lower socioeconomic status. So now thinking about Chaminade's data compared to the national landscape, and we do have students who hold underrepresented and minoritized identities. How does kind of what the comparison between paid versus unpaid internships look like? So for unpaid internships, it can definitely be a barrier to career development, especially if students are taking a full course load. They may be personally responsible for their own expenses, or they may also have other responsibilities and may take care of their families. So unpaid internships can and are inequitable, since students may not be able to pursue an unpaid internship in addition to managing all of their responsibilities. And then also data shows from NACE as well that students with paid internships perform better at job fairs and receive more job offers. So if students are pursuing unpaid internships, then they might lack some of the skills that students who have paid internships have. And then also in terms of receiving more job offers, that can also create more inequities as well in terms of pay and wage. And lastly, unpaid interns, are less likely to be satisfied with their first job. And so as we think about students who are in their job search and where they're landing in their first destination post-graduation, those who have done unpaid interns in the past may be less likely to be satisfied. So now as we transition into what benefits exist for employers who have interns or have internship programs, interns can definitely bring fresh perspectives to existing operations and projects. So students who are interning are learning things in their classrooms and can definitely apply that new learning and provide new perspectives when they're interning at an organization and contributing to the growth of that organization as well. Interns can also create a pipeline of new talent who seamlessly transition to full-time roles. So when we think about students who are interning at an organization, it may be their first time working in that type of professional environment or that type of workplace. And so if students find that internship experience to be extremely fulfilling and want to continue working for that organization, in turn, organizations may also extend offers to students to transition into full-time roles. And that pipeline can continue on for that organization to continue bringing in new folks to work for them. Another aspect of internships that can also be extremely beneficial is providing mentorship opportunities for existing team members. So as we think about employers and organizations who want to continue fostering professional development in their team members, an avenue for that is connecting them with interns and building mentorship and networking opportunities so that these connections can remain and become a part of both the student and that team members network. Former interns also stay longer at an organization compared to non-interns. So with former interns, there could be an aspect of loyalty that a student or an intern may exhibit. And lastly, internships put underrepresented industries on students' radars. So as we think of students who are in their undergraduate college journey, it's the time to explore interests and also explore different curiosities that they have as they consider what their life and what their future career looks like. And so having internship opportunities too can expand a student's view of what is out there and what opportunities exist for them as they consider their futures. So what are some of the benefits for students now that we've talked about benefits for employers? Students can gain exposure to potential career paths in workplace settings. So outside of having their coursework and maybe a part-time job, having an internship opportunity could help students learn more about different career paths and different even positions and workplace environments and different jobs that they could pursue in the future. It also helps them build connections with working professionals in industries of interest. And as we know, building connections and having ties to people is an essential part of job searching and career journeys. And so building connections is a huge benefit for students as they navigate their lives. Students can also develop and improve skills that will benefit them in the workforce. And so as they're working on projects and they're gaining responsibilities in different areas and building their skills and competencies, they can take all of these skills and utilize them in whatever future job or career path that they decide to pursue. Um, and having all of these improved skill and development, it also increases their confidence and optimism toward their future. Now they have something like a tangible experience that they have that they can articulate in future job interviews, articulate when they're networking with other folks. And so that increased confidence and optimism is super beneficial for students. And lastly, they'll be able to integrate classroom learning with workplace settings as they consider potential career paths. So there might be tension when students are like purely pursuing their coursework and reading textbooks and taking exams, and they can't make the connection between what they're doing in a classroom into like what their lives will be like when they enter the workforce, work in an organization, experience a workplace. And so being able to integrate that classroom learning along with some work experience or internship experience is super helpful as they decide and navigate what their career journey is going to look like. So now that like I've talked about data for internships in terms of like the national landscape, what Chaminade University students' demographics look like, and kind of what the benefits of internship experiences are for both students and employers, what is Chaminade's response, and how are we supporting students and encouraging them to pursue internship opportunities to expand and as well as increase their career readiness? So we have what is called the, if my slide will advance. Okay, so we have what is called the Pono Internship Fund, or PIF, since Pono Internship Fund is a mouthful. So what is PIF? So PIF is a fund that we have for undergraduate students who are completing otherwise unpaid internships. And the main goal of this fund is to essentially compensate students who may be pursuing unpaid internships and addressing an inequity in terms of students not being compensated for their work in an unpaid internship. So the goal is to reduce barriers for students to pursue internship opportunities, especially as we think about students who may have part-time jobs or as well as a full course load. And so they don't have the capacity to take on a potentially unpaid internship. And so having the opportunities such as PIF as a resource, students can consider pursuing internship opportunities that they might have not considered otherwise. So with the Pono Internship Fund, eligible students are compensated for the hours that they're working in their unpaid internship, and they're compensated $15 for up to 19 hours a week. And so students will undergo an application process in order to apply for the Pono Internship Fund with their unpaid internship offer in order to be compensated for the hours that they're working. And so what's super exciting about PIF, I think it gives also students the chance to explore internships that they might not have considered otherwise. And that way they're able to explore the interests that they might have, maybe pursue an internship in a career path that they didn't even think that they were interested in before, or something completely unrelated to their major. And so having PIF is super exciting because it can be a way for students to expand and explore options without feeling the heaviness of I'm pursuing an unpaid internship and can't be compensated. So in thinking about how we're executing the unpaid internship fund and our goals for having students pursue internship opportunities and increasing career readiness, here are the various ways that Chaminade is taking their career advising approaches. So for the first one, it's vocational discernment and purpose. And so discerning for students what their career journeys might look like and maybe what they think they want to be fulfilled and how they will be fulfilling their purpose. A job may not necessarily be a job because we want students to be able to envision what their lives will look like and how their career journey will play into that life that they want to create for themselves. I just went to the talk from Julia Freeland Fisher, and she mentioned like life design. And so that's something that we're thinking about in connecting to vocational discernment and purpose for students as we're advising them. So not only thinking about your education and securing a job, because that's something that is a priority important, but how does that job tie into your life and fulfill all of your different responsibilities and provide satisfaction and help a student feel fulfilled and have purpose. Another approach that we incorporate into career advising is Chaminade is a Marianist institution, and there are various Marianist educational characteristics that tie along to that as a value-based institution. And so one of the educational characteristics is educating for justice, service, and peace. At Chaminade, we are a Pacific Island and Native Hawaiian student serving institution. And so these student populations value community and being able to serve the communities in the future. And so how can we help students connect their education to their purpose and their jobs and careers in the future and contribute to their communities in the future? So that's how we tie in Marianist educational characteristics into our career advising approach. Another factor in having students explore different career paths are career assessment inventories. And so Pathway U is one of the inventories that we are using at Chaminade. It's what I personally like about Pathway U is that it also ties in values into the assessment inventory and gauges a student's level of different types of values and how those values will contribute to their career journeys in the future and what maybe industries students may be more inclined to work in based on the values that they exhibit. And that, I think, also ties into vocational discernment and purpose, because values, I think, play a huge part in a student's career journey and how they want to live their lives. And so tying that back into values and purpose can be a really important part of a student's career journey. The next is encouraging self-reflection in students during advising sessions. So not only asking, like, what are your career goals? What is the job you're searching for? Like, what position titles are you interested in? It's also asking reflective questions such as, like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What things do you value? Like, what kind of workplace environments do you envision yourself being in? Like, what are your likes? What are your dislikes? So fostering that self-reflection so students can think about and pursue opportunities that connect with their values and also what they like, essentially. And then lastly, connecting students with opportunities, whether these opportunities have been created based on the Pono Internship Fund, other opportunities, or both based on what a student's needs and interests are. So these are kind of the various career advising approaches that we've taken at Chaminade in supporting students' career readiness. So now I'll go into kind of different ways that we've been engaging students around career readiness and increasing their career development. And so I think one of the most important ways, Chaminade is a pretty small campus, and so multiple modes of communication is necessary through staff, faculty, and students. I think word of mouth is really helpful at Chaminade, and so trying to build that in. Also fostering relationships across campus with staff and faculty. And so building different modes of networks that students can access across campus that can support their career development. So when I think of staff, an example that comes to mind is cultivating relationships potentially with academic advisors, because students might have career-related questions for their academic advisors as they're scheduling out their like 4, 5, or 6-year plans. Connecting with faculty as well, since faculty can be another way for students to explore or learn about career paths and jobs and different opportunities that may be available to them as an undergraduate student, and also student word of mouth with each other, and talking about career and what job search or even like what internships are like amongst each other. And so having multiple modes of communication to engage students is extremely helpful and necessary. In terms of more of like the nitty gritty hard skills that students need to be developing or may want assistance in our resume and cover letter review and mock interviews. If I think about the Pono Internship Fund specifically, how are students utilizing career services to improve their application materials and practice their interviewing skills in order to secure internship positions. Another facet too is coaching students through communicating with employers. Like for me, email etiquette can seem super standard and really basic, and students may not know how to craft emails and reach out to folks and communicate in that manner. And so coaching students through how to write emails and how to communicate not only with employers, but with like HR individuals, and how to communicate with folks across campus as well, and practicing that email etiquette, since it'll be necessary for them throughout their time, not only as a student, but in the future when they secure their jobs as well. And then a last mode for engaging with students in different ways is hosting different events on campus to connect students also with employers. And so they can build those connections and learn about different opportunities for them to pursue, whether they be prioritizing internships, number one, with the Pono Internship Fund, but also with part-time and full-time employment, or even volunteer opportunities for ways for students to get involved with the communities. And so we've done virtual and in-person internship and career fairs. And last semester we did a career carnival to engage students in a less stuffy, more casual manner. And so the goal of the career carnival was to increase career readiness in students through gamifying career development content. And so I created different games in relation to career development topics such as interview techniques. Attire was another one, and also like resume and cover letter review. And we had like Jenga, a roulette wheel. So just figuring out how to engage students and have them play games surrounding career readiness so it doesn't seem as daunting or intimidating, and also having employers engage with students in that setting in a really casual, outdoor, relaxed environment, so students don't feel as though they're intimidated by engaging with job or career, and feel more comfortable talking to industry professionals, as well as like learning more about resumes or even practicing interview questions. And so gamifying content is another way that I've tried to engage students to make career development more accessible and fun, as opposed to scary or intimidating. So these are some of the ways that we've been increasing career readiness in students at Chaminade. The other facet of career services is partnering with different employers. And we've done a lot of new partnerships through the Pono Internship Fund in order to encourage students to pursue internship opportunities, as well as get involved with the community and try to build their professional network, as well as increase their skills for particular jobs that they might be interested in. So when partnering with employers on the university end, here are some of the main considerations that we've thought about with employer relations. So initially, when we're talking to employers and creating internship opportunities, I think the priority should be that it's an impactful internship opportunity in a reciprocal relationship that's beneficial for all parties. So that was like kind of a mouthful. But when building an internship opportunity, I think we don't want our students to merely go to an internship and end up filing papers or making copies. We want them to be able to have a meaningful, impactful experience that builds their skills and competencies toward a future career. And we want them to make contributions to an organization and have an organization foster that professional development in students. And so it should be a reciprocal relationship where students are contributing to projects that positively support and directly impact an organization, while an organization's staff or whoever's supervising that intern or overseeing them should be providing that support throughout their internship experience, and potentially mentorship. And so that mentorship should definitely be a component, and that mentorship can look however way it looks for that supervisor and the intern, but that connection can be like hugely important in a student's future career journey. There should also be learning that ties back into a student's education. I think that is also a really critical part of an internship experience, as students should be tying back what they're learning within their curriculum and their coursework directly into the position or the projects that they're working on. And so having that builds that connection between a student's degree and also between the career paths that they want to create for themselves. And then lastly, I think another really important part of building employer partnerships is having employer engagement on CUH or Chaminade's campus. And so I think for when we think about employer partnerships at Chaminade, it's not merely enough for employers to post a position and have it shared out to students, but having them engaged on campus in whatever way that looks like, whether it be through fairs or tabling on campus. It's a direct connection to students and also helps foster students' ability to speak with and build connections with employers to learn about opportunities. And so employer involvement, I think, is an important aspect of employer relations for an employer and a university. So now that I've talked a little bit about internships and some of our career advising approaches and our strategies that we've utilized at Chaminade to increase career readiness, I'm going to go through some of the Pono Internship Fund data, and this is data that I've aggregated from the start of the internship fund until January 23rd of earlier this year. So, and also to provide a bit of context to, Chaminade University has about 1,000 undergraduate students, and the fund is specifically catered towards undergraduate students. And so we initially had the fund in 2020, and the pandemic kind of stifled progress, as you all probably will understand. And so overall, we've had 80 students, 88 different internships through the Pono Internship Fund, and 39 different internship sites. So there's less student numbers compared to the number of internships because we've had students who have done multiple unpaid internships and we're able to compensate them for additional unpaid internships as well, since there is no cap for students to continue pursuing the Pono Internship Fund and apply to be compensated as long as they're eligible. As you can see, we made a lot of progress in 2022 as we were coming out of the height of the pandemic. And now as we're progressing into 2023, which is our last year with the Pono Internship Fund, we're hoping to make also steady progress as well in getting students paid who are pursuing unpaid opportunities or even creating additional internship experiences that students can pursue, which will foster their career development. In addition to some of the numbers, here are some of the recent internship sites where we've had students intern. So here is a photo of Lee Howe, and she was a former intern at Bees Greens. She's an environmental studies or science major, and so a lot of interest in agriculture and plants. And so her internship experience is definitely directly correlated to her degree plan. If you scan that little QR code at the bottom of her photo, you'll be able to read a little bit more about her. Our university's communications and marketing department interviewed her regarding her studies as well as her internship experience. And so you can learn a little bit about her through that article, through the QR code. Other internship sites also include Hope Services, Make-A-Wish Hawaii, Mauna Lua Fish Pond, as well as Lanakila Pacific. So through the Pono Internship Fund, students can pursue unpaid internship opportunities and get compensated. And it doesn't have to be internship opportunities that we at Chaminade have partnered with employers to create. It can be already existing unpaid internship opportunities in the communities. And so students have the freedom to elect to pursue whatever internships that they're interested in. And if it's unpaid, we have the backbone of PIF to compensate them. So now we're going to circle back to talking about even more data, and we're parsing down what PIF data specifically looks like and comparing it to what national data for internships look like from NACE. I love data. It's super great to see and aggregate data based on, and disaggregate data based on different populations to truly see what student populations we're targeting with the work that we're doing and how we may be able to reduce inequities. And also, as I mentioned before, we have historically excluded student populations or underrepresented students at school. So how can we support these students and provide greater access for them to opportunities that they might not think of otherwise? And so in terms of PIF recipient data over the course of the time that we've had the fund, for the recipients, they were 93% students of color, 87% of PIF recipients are women, and 69% are either first generation and or Pell eligible. So as you can see, the majority of students that we are supporting have minoritized identities. So it's super cool to be able to address some inequities that exist with unpaid internships and reduce that gap for students. And they're able to also pursue internship opportunities and increase career readiness. Compared to national data from NACE, again, we talked about and shared a little bit about this earlier, but 74% of paid interns are white. Women account for 81% of unpaid internships, which is a huge statistic. And first-gen students account for 25% of never intern and 19% of paid interns. So hopefully through the work of the Pono Internship Fund, we're able to continue to support minoritized student populations. So now I'll go into some of the student testimonials of previous PIF interns. And so it's cool that we've been able to have students who pursue unpaid internships and multiple internship opportunities and get compensated. This is one from a student who pursued 2 different unpaid internship opportunities and got compensated from us as well. And they said, I have gotten hands-on experience that I can't get in the classroom. I learned about the company and all the aspects of how it works. I discovered what I liked and disliked about the industry. And here's another testimonial from another PIF intern. I was able to improve my public speaking skills, coordinate events, and the opportunity to learn more about sustainability through the eyes of credible individuals. And so as you can see, it has a really PIF has positively impacted, as well as that internship experience these students pursued had positively impacted how they envision and their skill development and their competencies for future jobs that they may pursue. I think also too, learning about what a student likes and dislikes about an industry is really important as they consider what kinds of jobs and workplaces that they might want to pursue in the future. And internship experiences can definitely directly contribute to that. So now I'll go over some of the key takeaways from our work with the Pono Internship Fund, as well as encouraging students to pursue internship opportunities to increase their career development and career readiness. Career development looks different for each individual student, and having a variety of approaches can be effective. Not all students have the same lived experiences. Even if students share the same identities, the way they view the world and how they navigate situations and their career goals are extremely different. And so employing different career advising approaches is super helpful in ensuring that we're hopefully targeting students across a range of identities and experiences and tapping into them and supporting them the best that we can. Now, as a career advisor, I definitely have a direct role in building career readiness in students, but also considering that everybody in the entire institution has a direct role in building career readiness for students as well. Students have touch points with various campus partners, various folks across campus. Even they have lots of touch points within each other, and that can also be a direct way or direct point towards building their connections and networks that contributes to their career readiness and builds their professional development. Internship programs should be beneficial for students and organizations. And so organizations should not just merely be having students do admin work like filing or making copies and answering phones, even though that might be a part of their roles, but students should feel as though they have at hand in projects and responsibilities that directly and positively impact an organization, because that's an important component of how they may see themselves contributing to an organization's mission in the future, in their future jobs, along their career journeys and their career paths. And so internship programs should definitely be beneficial for students and organizations as a whole. And then lastly, paid opportunities ought to be prioritized for employers and students. Unpaid internships demonstrate a huge inequity for students, and students should definitely be compensated for their labor and the work that they're producing for an organization. So I truly believe that paid opportunities ought to be prioritized in order to mitigate inequities that students experience along their career journey, and hope to hopefully reduce barriers and reduce additional barriers students may encounter as they're pursuing their career paths and navigating life in general. So that concludes the content that I have today, but I would love to stay connected. Here's my information. My email is diane.yang@chaminade.edu. Feel free to also connect with me on LinkedIn as well if you have additional questions, but I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
Thanks so much, Diane. That was super informative and generates a lot of great ideas for our audience. At this time, we will go ahead and take questions. So feel free to pop them in the chat. I do have a couple of questions, but I just want to wait just a couple of seconds to see if anyone else has any other questions. Or actually, while we're waiting for questions to generate, I do have a question, Diane. You speak about the PIF fund. How did that get started, or where does the funds come from to generate for this pot for students?
Yeah, so it's a Title III federal grant. And so one of our initial goals when we first started to have the fund in 2020, this was before I came along to Chaminade, and there was a staff member who was on board in that role prior to me, was creating and having students pursue internships in a pandemic. So the initial goal with the fund was we could be able to fund students in unpaid internships through an organization, and hopefully after like 2 to 3 years potentially of having Chaminade students intern with the organization, they would be able to have a sustaining internship program and recruit interns that they could pay in the future after like running through and having students unpaid initially. So those were some of the initial goals. And now we're just hoping that students will pursue unpaid internship opportunities, building positive relations with employers, and hopefully they'll be more inclined to pay future student interns, whether they're Chaminade students or not. We'd love if they were Chaminade students. But it's definitely helpful for an organization to like build an internship program for themselves too, as they think about like a local pipeline that they're bringing into their organization.
Cool. We have, thank you. So, and we have a question in the chat. What would you say has been your biggest challenges in creating and sustaining this wonderful effort?
I think one of the biggest challenges is we have a lot of internship opportunities and a lot of employers who are interested in having student interns, and sometimes it just doesn't mesh with like having students who pursue these opportunities based on like a variety of different factors, such as like timing not working out. Something that I've learned over doing this is transportation is a huge thing for students, and so working with employers to potentially build like hybrid or remote opportunities that students can pursue if they don't have transportation. So mitigating different challenges that students might have because they have a lot of things on their plate, and so like asking them to also like, hey, do an internship, you know, it's super important and it might be super hard based on your schedule. And so like figuring out ways for them to still seek out and build and have internships in a way that works for their schedule. So I think that has been the greatest challenge, is like I have all these internship opportunities, employers interested, and it's like figuring out how to manage all of these challenges that students may experience in their own personal lives too.
Um, with those challenges, and thank you for saying some of those challenges, would you do anything differently or add to this fund or to this program to help address those challenges?
Yeah, so I touched upon a little bit too, but encouraging employers to create hybrid or remote opportunities, I think that hugely increases accessibility and reduces barriers to pursue internship opportunities because they can do projects on their own. They don't need to be in an office all the time in a workplace environment doing the projects as well. And so building out hybrid or even like fully remote opportunities is definitely creating more accessibility for students, and that way they can also like keep, if they want to, keep their part-time jobs and also like have the flexibility if they don't own a car or have transportation. And so that's kind of one way. I think another way too is like building a culture of pursuing internships for students and encouraging them and educating them on the importance of internships too. I think students may have a concept of like, I know I need to do an internship and it's important and I have all these other things too. And so like, how can we help students and support them in like all of the things that they're working on and encourage them to like, hey, I know this is like this other one more thing, but that will help you in the long term in your future as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned about the hybrid and the remote, because I think for our potential employers in the audience, this might be a great way to gauge and pilot. If you're thinking of going hybrid or remote, to pilot it with an intern to see what kinds of opportunities and issues may come about should someone, an employee, you know, do a project remotely or hybrid. So that is another great opportunity for employers to think about, is what kinds of things can you pilot in your work environment uh, that an intern can try, you know? So that's the reciprocal benefit. So thank you for that. In terms of sustaining, Diane, I know that this is part of a grant. Has there been conversations about sustaining this fund? I think it's a great opportunity or a great backup plan for students who really need the money, have this unpaid internship, and have that benefit of getting paid and getting that opportunity.
This is our second year extension with the fund, and we won't be having another extension too. So unfortunately, this will be our last year with the Pono internship fund. So we're like doing our last stretch um, for students to get compensated. And so I think also it comes down to like shifting career advising practices in the future of like if you're pursuing an unpaid internship, like what are other ways that we can find compensation for you, or is there ways to negotiate compensation, and how can we coach you around that? I think also to for employers who have participated in the Pono internship fund and created internship opportunities and had unpaid internships, like having conversations with them around, we have this fund until X date, and I think it's highly great if you were able to in the future fund student interns, since X student intern has such a great impact on your organization. Like, is there ways that future interns, if you're going to have projects or additional responsibilities, I think also to encouraging, another thing too is encouraging students to pursue paid internship opportunities in lieu of unpaid internship opportunities. And I think that also like drives the push for more organizations to feel more inclined to compensate student interns.
Thank you. Well, I hope that it continues in some form or way. It's definitely very helpful in decreasing that financial barrier for students while gaining such a valuable opportunity. We have another question in the chat. Have any employers so far designed remote or project based opportunities? And I guess if so, can you describe a little bit of that?
Yeah, so I do have students who pursue remote opportunities through the Pono Internship Fund. So we had, I think she is still currently interning, and they're an organization on Maui. So students are eligible to do internships as long as they're in the US. And so Outer Island internships are also an option too if they want to do them completely remote. And this one is project-based too, and a student is doing work to support a nonprofit. And so the organization designed projects that the student could do on their own, and then Zoom check-ins on a cadence so that there's still a line of communication between the student intern and the organization too. And so I think with designing remote opportunities for employers, it's coaching them on like, what are some of your needs in your organization that you can have students do in a remote environment? And it could be things like research or like data based projects too, since that's not something that you can, like, you need to have a person do like in an office. Like students can work on it on their own. And so, yeah, so those are some of the considerations with remote or project-based opportunities, is finding ways or needs for an organization that they have, and then figuring out how they can take those needs and build projects in remote opportunities like research or data-driven projects.
Very cool. Thank you. In terms of the students applying for PIF, can you explain a little bit about the application process, what they have to go through, and then also, in addition to the internship, are there any other requirements that they have to fulfill as part of receiving the PIF?
Yeah, that's something I should have shared in my presentation as well. But for students who want to be compensated through the Pono internship funds, they will complete a really short application. And so within that application form, they fill out information about themselves, and the internship experience also needs to be approved by their faculty advisor so that it demonstrates some kind of tie between the internship experience and the coursework of their degree program. And they will write a short essay answering like 2 questions regarding like what is the internship opportunity and how will it support you. And then they will also include their internship offer or position description that outlines what this internship will be. And so that's how we review PIF intern applications. We've never turned anyone away, so it's super awesome. I've like never said no to anybody. And then for additional things that a student needs to take care of if they're receiving funds through PIF is they have to complete financial literacy modules, and that also just teaches them basic financial literacy, managing money and budgeting. And then we'll do check-ins with them throughout their internship. And then at the end of their internship experience, they complete a reflection, which asks them various questions based on their internship experience. That's also where the student testimonials came from in the presentation. And then their supervisor also does an evaluation and talks that out through them, that they need to sign and their supervisor needs to sign off, that gets submitted to us.
Wow, that's very cool that you have them go through financial literacy modules on top of receiving the funds. That's very important considering that they are receiving these funds. And so how do you help use that money, and how do you help budget for that, etc.? So really cool. We had a comment at HCF. We've had the opportunity for remote paid internship and did not fill it, so they may contact you soon. Yay, I love
this.
Yes,
please do. I love that too.
I love these networking opportunities. Diane, if you want to go ahead and share your contact information again on the screen, just so that they have it again. Thank you so much. And so I think I know that you talked about some key takeaways, Diane. Do you foresee continuing this kind of, I know that this is a grant, do you foresee continuing components of PIF, or how do you see continuing this kind of project?
Yeah, I definitely see continuing components of like the various aspects of career advising approaches that we've utilized at Chaminade. So using various facets of communication and connecting in order to engage with students. So not only like filtering out information to them, but building out programming and events that students can pursue too. So that will be something that definitely stays. I think will definitely be encouraging students to pursue internship opportunities, because that's definitely things that build skills, and develops them and prepares them to enter the workforce in the future. And so I think even if we do not have funds to pay our unpaid interns in the future, we'll definitely be continuing the work of like career development and increasing career readiness in students.
Very cool. Thank you. And I if there's anything looking back on this project, if there's anything that you could change, or for our post-secondary partners who are planning to like talk with their administrators about, let's start this fund because there's a lot of unpaid internships and we'd like to somehow support them, what advice would you give to our post-secondary partners as well as our employers who are thinking about partnering with our post-secondary partners?
Yeah, I think for post-secondary partners too, it's building a culture of pursuing internship opportunities, and educating students on its importance, not only in terms of like increasing career readiness and career development too, but also I think it builds like personal and life skills too for students to pursue internship opportunities, enter a workplace, navigate different dynamics and team dynamics and working relationships too. And so building that culture of this can definitely be a huge aspect that supports you like throughout your time. Building personal stories into that too, I think can also be pretty impactful, because as when I was an undergrad, I pursued internship opportunities and realized what I didn't want to do in the future. And so like framing it as an internship, like you do an internship and you get a job, that it may not be linear, and it's important to explore your options and curiosities too. And I think to considerations for working and building partnerships with employers too is like understanding what is most impactful in an internship opportunity and encouraging employers to incorporate those within their positions. Not only just having like admin work and copying and doing those type of things, but actually having projects where students can make contributions, and utilize what they're learning in the classroom, and also building that support system and training, because students don't go into an internship with all the skills. They have tons of skills and experiences that can transfer well, but they may not have the specific skills and training for this particular role. And so understanding that too, and like building a culture of support.
Um, which sparks one last question, unless there's more questions in the chat. Do you also work with the employers on designing and creating projects for students? Like if an employer said, I'm open to interns, but I don't know how we can help them or what we can design, do you also offer like, okay, what are your needs? You know, brainstorming sessions about opportunities that they can provide for students?
I have in the past. I've also found that position description samples are also like helpful and asked for quite often. And so those can provide helpful context as employers think about what they might need or would want an intern for within their organization.
Okay, very cool. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, Diane, for presenting at our 2023 HICA convening. I am going to share our survey, and then I'll also put the link in the chat for you. If you can do me the great honor and complete the following anonymous session evaluation, either by scanning the QR code or clicking the link on the chat. And again, we just want to thank you again for joining this session. And by completing the survey, we can learn more about your thoughts and suggestions for future convenings. I believe this is the last session, so have a great day, everyone. And thank you so much. And we will see you at one of our other Pathway Series summits and convenings. Thank you.
Thank you.